Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you so much for joining me today on the Friday Masterclass, where today we are once again revisiting collaboration in Premiere Pro, and we're going to pick up where we left off last week with my colleague Abhi and talk specifically about leveraging LucidLink as kind of your cloud storage solution to not only share the media, but to work more collaboratively, easily, efficiently. It is really going to blow your mind, and I have brought on my good friend Dave Helmley, who you may remember last year joined me on the stream, to really kind of take you through the steps of working with LucidLink, give you some tips and tricks along the way, and if we have some time towards the end here, possibly even sneak some of the other things that we're doing, which are very, very interesting if you work in these kind of remote collaborative workflows. So as always, we're coming to you live across Behance, YouTube, the Twitters, and several other locations, so thank you so much for joining. A couple of quick shout outs here. I see we've got Dave, we've got Burka, we have Benicio, we've got Tim, we've got Sarah, Ray Lancashire, Uma Korn, Oliver, Christelle. Great to see you all. And of course we've got our colleague Gino in there as well, taking questions. I believe we've got some people joining from LucidLink too. Pixie Pooey, Dadoria, great to see you, and Robert, thank you so much. Reverb Mike, always great. Jack Watson, hello, how are you doing? All right, friends, well, you know, we've got a lot of stuff to cover today, and it's so exciting to bring guests on. You're gonna see a lot more of this in the coming months here on the Friday Video and Audio Masterclass. So without further ado, we're gonna bring back my good colleague Abhi Singh and someone that you've longed for, the one, the only, he is truly an Adobe legend, Dave Helmley. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Good, thanks.
Great. Happy Friday. Happy the weekend's here. How about you, Abhi?
Yeah, going really well. Nice to see you.
Yeah, well, we're very lucky to have the both of you. And again, as I mentioned last week, so we're gonna go through some collaborative workflows. And Dave, you're really gonna take us through now. Abhi, we had a project already in Lucid. So part of obviously what I wanted you to do today was to take us through that whole process, really give a little bit more background on why LucidLink is so great, particularly if you're doing, well, if you just need a little bit more in terms of working in that sort of cloud-based collaborative environment, what it does, what it brings to the table in terms of speed and efficiency. We got to see a little bit of that last week. And maybe just for everybody watching, maybe you could kind of just reintroduce sort of what you do at Adobe and kind of what we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I'm a director on the Strat Dev team. So what does that mean? That's strategic development, in this case for professional video. We're a team of about 20 people worldwide that have varying skill sets, but all around video workflows. As Jace knows, I'm sort of the resident geek on call, and I experiment with lots of different technology. I discovered LucidLink about 3 years ago, actually just before the pandemic. Kind of stumbled across them in the government space and really got to work with them fairly close because, as you'll see, they really have something that works amazingly well in video, and we've had a great partnership with them. Jace, I also like to tell them, that we've invested in this company. So Adobe, if you go to their website, we've looked at this technology and said this is great technology for our customers, and they're a fantastic partner. And I know a lot of what we like to sort of tell people is, especially in my team, we're nothing without partners. I mean, partners just extend what we can do. So we get to do what we do well. Partners just make us do it better. So that's probably the best way to tee up LucidLink. And then we can get into the hows and the whys and the problems that it solved. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Abhi?
Yeah, Dave, one thing I was going to add, I mean, we showed this last time as well, but one of the other things that's really nice about LucidLink is that it works really well with our collaborative project solutions. So we showed it with team projects last time. And team projects, requires very little setup, right? So we can invite each other to a project, and combined with LucidLink and the availability of media, it makes it all work and tie everything together really nicely.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I'm very much excited to really showcase here is also, and Dave, maybe you can clarify this as we're going through, and I'll share your screen in just a second.
Sure.
You let me know when you're ready. So we showed a couple of different sort of workflows right out of the box, so to speak, with Premiere and leveraging Frame for sort of a collaborative file storage medium, just so that anybody understands, particularly with team projects, you can really get started right away without having to purchase, license, subscribe to anything else, right? You could do that immediately. Lucid is for anybody, but it also, and correct me, you tell me, it is kind of, it's that next level. You need a little bit more, you need a little more speed, you need a little more flexibility, and that's part of where this really shines, right?
Yeah, I think the magic about LucidLink, as you'll see, I'll just say for a creator, they just want to create and they want to stay in that zone.
Hmm.
I'm also the remote and what's known as VDI guy, sort of this virtual desktop up in the cloud, right, where you're renting computers in the cloud. It gets real
Yes.
complex, honestly, with all the different tools. We're just trying to open up our Mac or Windows machine, see the volume, and I just want to edit. I don't want to have to worry about syncing and downloading and all these other things.
Right.
LucidLink to me really solves the problem of just make it work like a thumb drive, right? Like all I'm trying to do is just if I can just plug this in or a Thunderbolt drive, or even if I'm in the office, a network drive, right? Like, we all know how to attach to a network drive, and I'll go through
Right.
some of this in a second. If
Yep.
I can make it work and mimic that way, then I can just stay in my zone. I can edit. And then when I'm collaborating with Abhi, what's really frustrating about cloud workflows, remote workflows, is that Abhi makes an update. I don't have the Photoshop file. I have to go do this. And there's all these automatic ways to kind of move things around
Right.
versus if we're just in the office, we're like, hey, we're working in this universal folder on the server. Everything goes into here. LucidLink works that way. Premiere, by the way, Photoshop, After Effects, it has no idea that LucidLink's in the cloud. It thinks it's
Right.
locally attached,
Right.
and that's
Right.
part of the magic, right, Jay? So that to me, it's
Yep.
all about the magic.
Yeah, and Abby covered that too and kind of teed that up last week. So,
Yep.
okay, well, we got a lot of people they want to see it.
Sure.
Stop talking, show me. And they're absolutely right. I can't disagree with
Less
that. So,
talk,
Dave,
more clicks, right?
that's right. So I'm looking at your screen. I see it. I
Okay,
see
I'm
I'm
gonna go ahead
still
and
on there. So,
minimize that for a sec. Okay,
all right.
let's just talk about how when I introduce LucidLink to people for the first time, how I do this. So now, again, I'm on my Mac. If I'm on Windows, it would work the same for Windows. Just under it would be Drive L.
Yep.
So what I would normally do if I have to go attach to a network is I can see I've got a mini Xserve here. I can pop over to my network and I've got a QNAP sitting out here and some other servers. This is what I would normally just mount. And then Abhi would do the same thing. He would mount on this 9 terabyte Xserve, and then he and I would just start working.
Yep.
So that's what we're trying to mimic, except in the cloud, because Abhi's outside of San Jose and I'm in Maryland. So I'm going to just fire up the LucidLink client. And by the way, LucidLink, one of the things I love about it is it works on Mac, Windows, and it even works on Linux. So in our industry,
Ooh.
we get a lot of people that may do some special effects on Linux.
Yep.
They can come
Yes.
to the party as well, which is
Love
great.
that. Yeah.
So here's LucidLink. It looks just like any other volume on my desktop here. Now, I'm also the admin on this, so I'll have full rights. I'll show you some of that in just a second. So I get to see the entire workspace here. Now, for this particular demo, it's sitting up on AWS. I have some interesting things I can do with Azure and Wasabi and things like that. So it really doesn't make a difference what storage you have,
Right.
so long as it's S3 compatible. So you can bring your own storage. Another thing, Jace, that I think is worth calling out. Let me just come over here because I get this a lot. If I go to LucidLink, I just like to show pricing. Like this is pretty reasonable because for $20 a month, and again, I don't work for LucidLink. I'm just telling you, I think this is part of
Right.
the magic. This
Right.
is five users for $20. So it's like
Right.
anybody can test this out. There's no egress, which means it's a flat rate per terabyte. So if Jason and I and Abhi all wanted to edit, we could just jump in at any one of these prices. Happens to do if I work for a corporation and we already have our own storage. So I just
Right.
show you this just to say, it's priced right. People are never really hung up on the price about that. Now let's talk
Right.
about workflow. So I need to add a folder to this, and I'm just going to come in here, and I'm just going to I'll just call this Jason Friday. So now
Good
I
choice.
pop over here, and you see I'm interacting with this just like it's a local drive. And I can come over here. I can grab some R3D files. I can come over here and I'll grab some. Let's just come over here and grab some ProRes files here, and you'll see it's going to prep these to edit up to the cloud pretty quick. Now it's still uploading those, but I can use them right now. And I'm going to sort of jump into a LucidLink project here. So let me just bring up Premiere here for a second. And I'm going to open up a team project that Abhi and I have been working on. All the media is sitting up in LucidLink. And you can see as I double click on this, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger and easier to see. That is just, just giving me the media instantly. And let me just pop over here, make this a little bigger. I can jump around and see the media here. See that Abhi's got some testing going on there. Let me see what's happening on this window here. Let me clear those out. There it goes. No, it's not. Hold on one sec. I don't know what's happening there. Abhi, is that something on your side? But let me just relaunch Premiere.
It is live. This is why I love this.
Oh, yeah.
I won't argue with that. It's I have a couple ways I can control this. So
yeah. Hey, while you're doing that,
for
Dave,
yeah, go ahead.
Ray Lancashire is asking, what's the minimum internet speed you need to run LucidLink?
Great question. So let me answer that question here. I'm going to launch a project directly off of LucidLink. So this is not a team project yet. I'll get into that in just a second. And what you'll see is that this will pop up in just a second. And I can just hit the space bar. I can bring up my nerd counter here. And you can see I'm not dropping any frames. This only requires at 1080 at full resolution, 20 up and 20 down. So I can edit this all day long and not drop any frames.
And just so everyone's aware too, you're pulling this now from that AWS storage. That's where all this is coming from. And you can see in the metering, like the metering is incredibly fast.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in and grab the JSON folder. So if I go in here and say JSON Friday, give me that. I'm going to drag it down here to the timeline. And let me bring up my Geek screen again. That's a 4K edit, full quality, no drop frames. I can start and stop that. And again, I don't know how it's coming across on your screen, Jace, if it's not good. That's why I show this screen, so you can see it's not dropping any frames on my end. And I can scrub this timeline. Now, what LucidLink is actually doing, I try to explain it this way, and I made a graphic if this helps. LucidLink, basically, when I uploaded those ProRes files, I kind of just use Minecraft as an analogy. It breaks it up into tiny, tiny blocks and serves me those blocks when I put my time marker anywhere, within the timeline.
Okay.
It's just in time frame serving, and it's also broken down into blocks. So that's how it's able to do the magic, and that's kind of what sets LucidLink apart from other companies, because I can just grab the frame when I need it. Now, there will be times, for example, when I open up a 45-minute project where if you don't have a really quick speed, you might get for a nanosecond a media pending, a media offline for a second. Then as soon as it catches up, you can hit the space bar and it will deliver the frames forward. And any frame that you've already looked at, LucidLink gives you the ability to have a controlled cache bucket that just says, I'm going to be scrubbing all over this timeline. And it really just needs to be just a bucket of, say, 10 gigabytes, 15 gigabytes, 5 gigabytes, whatever you want, of controlled cache. So it's not like, other great products like, Dropbox or OneDrive, which those products work, but they can also just take up a lot of hard drive space, right? So all of a sudden, someone's got a 3 terabyte project, and all of a sudden it's taking up 3 terabytes. So, Jason, if we don't have any questions, I'm going to bring up just the control panel to show how easy it is.
Yeah, go for it, man. I think people they're watching, they're asking, but Gino's on it, so yeah, let's keep moving. And the output looks great.
I also have a 2-hour project up on LucidLink. So I like to be able to, and it's lots of sequences. It's what's called, it's a what's called a Premiere production, which is lots of projects all working together in a team environment. I happen to have set this up for some testing at 125 gigs, and it was more than enough. You don't need that much, but relatively speaking, that's not much these days. If I wanted to come in and I wanted to add Gino as a user, and I can't remember, Gino, if I've already set you up. I did, but I'll just set up another Gino. I can set up Gino. I can give him a password, and I can have him force his password changed. And now I just added Gino down here. So I just come down here and I say, there's Gino. And I'm just going to give him access to a share. So I'll just come in here and I'll just say, there's his share. And I'm going to give him either read only if I don't want him able to change anything, or I'm just going to give him read write. And now that's the only folder, once he downloads the LucidLink client and then logs in, that he's able to see. So it's super easy to maintain the amount of shares. And if I go look at our friend Abhi, I can see that Abhi, I've given him access to 5 shares. And I've even given him his own folder called Abhi Space. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. And for our corporate users out there, you've got the ability to have SSO integration as well. So super flexible. We have lots of corporate customers using this, but the point of me bringing the pricing screen up was not, again, to try to get you to buy it. It's like it's doable for just anybody. You know,
Yeah.
so
No, that's really, it's really important, Dave, because I think, especially if you just even think, when Abhi and I were sort of talking to this last week, the pricing for these kinds of solutions have really come down. I mean, there was a time where these things were really astronomical and out of reach for the average user. And that's why I wanted you to kind of clarify some of that. It was great that you brought that up because, hey, listen, everybody has to do what they have to do, but to sort of get you and four other people collaborating very, very efficiently, an additional $20 a month, if this is your business, is a good investment in yourself and what you're doing. And that's awesome.
And you know, Lucid does have an excellent trial. You know, for a lot of corporate users, they get into a larger POC. You know, definitely feel free to reach out to me if you want your company to look at it. I'll get you hooked up with the LucidLink gang, or if they're in the chat. I know I saw Julie there earlier. You can reach out to Julie O'Grady there in the chat. You know, they work great with us, so you know, feel free to reach out to them.
Yeah,
but the other thing that I also wanted to point out, that to show and prove this media is on the cloud, I'm going to actually disconnect and just exit out of LucidLink, and you'll see that everything now just went offline.
Right.
So what's also super frustrating is that, you know, normally you'd have to go into a relink and all that stuff. All I have to do, even if I've booted up this way on this project, once I turn on LucidLink, Premiere and LucidLink working together, it instantly comes right back on. And it doesn't make a difference that I was already in LucidLink. I could have just jumped into this project. And for when I showed this to Abhi and the rest of the team projects cloud team at Adobe, they were like, this solves so many problems because we just copy, just like I did before. I go to Abhi's cloud folder and I just start adding those Photoshop files, and then they instantly come online when I see that there's an update.
I want to just, Abhi, I was going to jump in with one thing too. I think any other Premiere user can appreciate what I think is actually ridiculous about what you just showed, and I mean ridiculous in a positive way, is that let's just say you offline everything in your project that's local. You don't see it immediately come back. You know, if you suddenly, you know, you turned a drive off and plugged it back in, that doesn't happen.
Well,
but this workflow, it just comes back in online. It's kind of crazy.
That I have to add a video for Abhi for this team edit that we're working on. I know you guys went through this last week. I don't have any idea, and honestly, I don't, because Abhi just invited me to this. I have no idea where this file is. I'm going to just go on my Mac or Windows machine, and I'm just going to say, can you show me where this is? She's going to go bingo, and it's just going to say, you know, Premiere doesn't have any idea where this is. I don't know it's sitting on AWS. So I
Right.
can just go over here and go, okay, well, let me move this over here. And I'm going to go just grab, let's just go grab a piece of video. Let me just find one that's good. See if I have some Adobe movies that might be fun. And I'm going to just copy this to let me I can grab something on Rush. I'll give Rush a little play here. I'm going to copy this inside that media folder.
Yeah.
And if I come back out and I just want to go add that, I can do it a couple ways. I can do it this way, or I can just go find this video here. I'm going to drag and drop this here. And then I'm just going to add another. So here's a video that our friend Michael Murphy did, and I'm going to publish this. Now there's new media, new timeline, added Michael's Minion Band.
And you're adding this to Abhi's project, so I'm gonna go.
Yep.
I'm gonna go side by side now. So
let's switch back over to Abhi.
Yeah.
And just watch how sharing media couldn't be easier. It's so natural, Jason.
Yeah. So I see the update button. I'm going to go ahead and just update the project here.
And
Yeah.
remember, Abhi has no media to download, right? He gets direct access to LucidLink.
So for everyone watching, Abhi's screen is above him on the right, and Dave's is still on the left. So
yeah, and just like that, I have the media. I think one of the
now you see it in your project, yeah.
Yeah, of what and it's highlighted, as you know, as Dave was saying, because the dock for LucidLink is just like any other docks, right? For any other drives that I may have, Team Projects is always scanning for that and seeing if there's new media added. So if you invite a user for the first time, they already know where the media is if it's on LucidLink, because it's a shared drive and people get to it instantly. The other thing, as Dave was saying, is for the vast majority of people in terms of costs, etc., we are really looking at people shipping hard drives, right? This is in reality, the remote workflow is still about FedEx and getting drives out to people. And this makes it so much easier for people to start working instantly or close to instantly.
Yeah.
Collaborators.
So, hey, so we see it highlighted. Abhi, can we see what you just pulled in there?
For sure.
Prove it. Prove it, man.
Absolutely. Here's the media that just came in.
So, one of the ways I like to explain it, we want our editors to edit as fast as they can think. And I know that that's corny, right? But it is exactly the way that we work. We're all a little ADHD these days with just all the tasks that we have to do and the pressure of the tech and logging in and logging out. And this to me just makes it so simple, like we're just in the same office, even though Abhi's 3,000 miles from me.
Yeah. And I can also see, Jason, I know we talked about this, but just as a reminder that I can see that Dave is editing that sequence, right? And I have view only access here. So it gives me, Dave, I can't actually stomp on Dave's work while he's working there because I don't have any of my editing controls. I can copy it and duplicate it, but can't mess around with his edit.
And what about scrubbability and everything in there still?
Yeah, I can scrub. It's scrubbing really nicely here. I'm not seeing any lag really.
Yeah, we've had over 100 people on this, just in our own test, on the same timeline, all editing the same media at the same time. LucidLink definitely keeps up with the bits, as I say. And I think we can all appreciate when you can hide the tech, you've got a winner. Like we haven't done any unnatural acts, I think, to make any of this work. And the thing I love about this solution, and Abhi, I think you'll appreciate this. If we've taken the pain of just getting to the media away, they can appreciate all the amazing work your team has done on team projects, right? Because we get into some of these things and we can't show half of what we need to show because there's always issues with media, right?
Yeah.
This way they can get in and say, oh, I see you've moved the publish button and we've got new icons that just, and who's editing and just the great UI that we can really just get around and experiment within the UI. I mean, it's really fantastic, the work that you guys have done. And I just think, tools like LucidLink are just a great complement. And this is these are the tools for the new work, right? This is another corny phrase, but this is
that was us in 2002, right? That
See,
was the
Jason,
Adobe
we're
slogan back
showing
then.
our age now. Now you both
Yeah.
know where we get our gray hair from.
Yeah, right.
Jason and I have a lot of T-shirts together. That's for
Yes,
sure.
yes, we do.
But
Yes, we do.
that phrase, "tools for the new work," I mean, it couldn't be more true today with a tool like this, with team projects and even other Adobe workflows like productions.
Yeah.
that's
Hey,
right.
hey, Dave, you're getting a question from Gino Marbella. He's asking, so my office network has some pretty strict firewalls. How does this affect connectivity, productivity, scrubbability, all those things?
That is a great question, Gino. And all I can tell you is it's been pretty great inside Adobe, and we have some pretty strict firewalls
Yeah.
as well. The one thing I will commend the LucidLink technical team on is they are great to help solve any of those problems. They do have a tech doc that will tell you, if there's certain ports that IT needs to look at, and for enterprise and for the corporate environment, Gino, that you're talking about, I have to be honest with you. I'm yet to see any major media company that I work with not approve LucidLink. I mean, they pretty much all approved it hands down for the ones that I'm working with directly. Now, depending on how wide it goes, that's another question, because you got to make sure SSO are set up the way that they need it to.
Right.
But as far as just getting it approved to be on their network, the LucidLink team has been great. So happy to connect you with those guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, and case in point, I mean, all three of us are remote, and like Abhi and I were doing last week. I mean, we have, it's funny, Dave, because it does make me think back in the day, and you'll remember this in the early 2000s, and when it was like, all right, well, the machine in the edit suite isn't even connected to the internet, right? Because we don't want any interference.
Yeah.
Right? And Abhi and I last week, I mean, there's so many firewalls and VPNs and things are running in the background. And we're scrubbing like it's local, 480p from, DV tape.
Well, I say, and I always use Minecraft. It's like I'm editing in Minecraft, right? It's just like the blocks are so big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, that's another thing that, I could also, mention that if I go over here and I grab, this is a red mag card. I could just grab a piece of red media, drag it into LucidLink, and I could even, by the way, as that's going to start to upload that. Now, this is moving some of this to my cache area, and it's going to allow me to go ahead and start editing on it right now. I don't have to wait for an upload. And if I look over here, Lucid's got some great tools that are telling me, and by the way, it's blazingly fast uploader, that I don't have to wait for this to finish. I can start working with it right now because the operating system thinks that this is on the cloud. It's sitting in a temp area right now. But another way that I like to talk about this, so there's no mistake, we are not streaming. We are getting actual real data. And one reason I use R3D files or Sony XAVC or RE raw files or Canon CR2 files, all the raw files is, I like to go over here, and Abhi could be doing the same thing on his end, and I double click on this. This is now going to launch the red player. Right. And this is a great way to look at this. Now, if I go down and I say, let me stream this at 1/4, you're going to see this gray bar start to grow. Mm-hmm. That's sending that to LucidLink. And so long as this white line doesn't outrun that, remember the old QuickTime streaming?
Oh yeah.
I know I'm not going to drop frames. Now watch what happens when I go down to a half. And this, by the way, is exactly the same controls we have in Premiere. That line just got, and we're taking up some bandwidth today between stream. By the way, this is a 6K file. So this is coming from a red 6K. So I know that if I'm going to play this in real time, I got to put that down to 1/4. But I am streaming native red. And this is the only system that I've seen to do this. And to do that in 4K or up, I recommend 100 up and 100 down. So not totally undoable. And Abhi, you should see the same thing. You could add this to our Premiere project, and there's no hit. So if I went over here and I just said, let me just add this, let me get a native red file going. I'm going to go ahead and let me just publish Abhi's changes. Now Abhi and I are working on ungraded media here,
Right. Yep.
and he and I can get into a discussion about what to do next. But it is truly amazing. And by the way, here's my switches, just like I showed you on red. I know for this one, I should bring this down to 1/4. And
Right.
if I come back in and I bring up the geek screen, that's your tip of the day is Command Shift F11 or Control Shift F11 on Windows. But this is, actually it's an 8K file. I took it back. So
Oh,
you,
yeah.
yeah, so it's pretty awesome the way that some of this works. And again, you have to remember we're streaming today, so that'll take a little bit of a hit. But I
Yeah.
can jump in here and natively start working with color, right? And I can say, let me just go down and grab any of my LUTs here, and then just figure out what LUTs do I need to start bringing in to bring that color out. So I'm not
Nice.
really giving up anything. It's just like I'm working local.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, all the scrubbing that you were doing in the player and everything, and showing that it's, I mean, it looks as smooth as you're seeing it. I'm glad it's coming through so well because
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
It truly works. I mean, I'll put it to you this way, Jace. You've worked for me long enough. This has
Yeah.
got my sort of seal of approval, and I don't
Yeah.
get that out very often. And by the way, and Lucid hates when I say this. I find nothing more boring than storage. Storage is a complete yawn to me. These guys have just added the excitement back in storage. Why? It just works. The other thing that I always like to point out is if I go to my desktop here, you can tell it looks like an active desktop because everything's so easy. This Lucid, mount, as we call it, a file space. If I put my Mac or Windows machine to sleep, I open it up in the office.
Yeah.
It comes right back online. If you have it set up as a startup item, so I don't ever worry. It's just with me all the time, and Lucid
That's
will
awesome.
monitor whether or not I'm in a green, excellent state or fair. The only place, and I'll always give you a straight answer, I've ever really seen an issue with these remote workflows. Sometimes hotels will limit your bandwidth, and you might have
Sure.
seen
Yeah.
when we're
Oh, yeah, of
traveling
course.
and we're like, oh, there's a Photoshop update today, and then all of a sudden it's really fast, and then as soon as you get about 10% through your Photoshop update, they've detected that you're taking too many bits. So
Oh, yeah.
you will have to watch that. And my other recommendation is just on the tech side, to see how good can be. I always recommend that when you test out LucidLink, connect it via Ethernet first in your house.
Right.
See
Yeah.
how good it is before you try to edit on Wi-Fi on the couch, because in some
Yeah.
cases you may want to make sure you've got updated routers and Wi-Fi 6 and so forth.
Sure, and I think that's a realistic best practice that people can, appreciate. Of course, yes, everything is Wi-Fi, but realistically, right, if you're working in 8K, look, my own machine's here. Yes, my router's right over there. I could be using Wi-Fi too, but, I can rely on the cable at times for what I need to do to provide the best stream for all of our viewers. Once again, thank you for watching. Okay, so yeah, I was just showing how Abhi was in the project too, and got your footage there. So kind of, I know we got about 22 more minutes, Dave. So we kind of showed.
How are we looking on questions?
Yeah, I mean, so we've got Organa in there, and Julie and Gino. Everybody's kind of answering everything, so it's going great.
Great.
And don't worry, Dave, we don't get excited about storage. We get excited about what it allows people to do. So yeah, they're still loving you here at LucidLink.
It's great tech. I just like when tech works. That's another thing, Jace, we should probably talk about. I probably have, just within my own team, and just friends of Dave, Jason's in there. I have about 150 people that I have on this one space. It's probably, 20 terabytes or so. And we're actively using LucidLink on a daily basis for different video reports that we have to do every month. and it has just become, just throw it on LucidLink. And this isn't really taking anything away, to be honest with you, because we also, as a corporation, use OneDrive as our corporate standard,
Right.
and we also use Dropbox, which I normally I'm running Dropbox. I might have turned it off, but I will just move stuff out of Dropbox and move it into LucidLink. I can always put it back. This, by the way, one thing we haven't talked about is we haven't talked about Frame.io. LucidLink.
Yeah, I know you were gonna introduce that. Now, again, this is kind of where Abhi and I started, but I know you were gonna sort of, and we talked about using it on its own. But I think we're gonna sort of chat about how you can sort of realistically use for a number of different things, Frame and Lucid together.
Exactly. So if I kind of go into my Frame, let's just bring up my Frame space here. Let that log in.
Yeah.
When you're in a Frame environment, Frame is a lot of people will say it's the center of truth, if you will, where all the storage is. But Frame will require me to download on my local drive. That's the way these things work.
Right.
Just like OneDrive and all those, and that's just the way it's worked until then. But if I tell Frame that I want to download this, what I do now is I say, I want you to download this to LucidLink, because now Abhi and Jason get the advantage of my one-time download to LucidLink. So one team member downloads from Frame. We all just get our work done. So I always like to say Lucid's where the work happens. So LucidLink is just controlling all the work. And let's say that I'm done with this project. And I've got a situation where I've got my Frame contract allows me to archive. We put it in what's called cold storage or Glacier. So I just right mouse click and say archive that. It will upload that from LucidLink directly to Frame.io. So it
nice.
really, really works great together. And the one fun thing, Jace, I don't think I invited you to this. I know you've done some camera to cloud sessions.
Yeah, actually, Gino Marbella, apologies for the pronunciation before, was just saying, yes, he is how does camera to cloud work with all of this?
Camera to cloud works great. So here's a project.
And by the way, Dave, before you move on, just my designers, can you move your UI so we're not seeing the purple on your? Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
all right,
okay.
That was giving me a twitch. Okay.
Okay. So again, I live in Annapolis, Maryland. So I'm sitting here, at the house I grew up in, and we like to watch the Blue Angels fly. So I wanted to invite my friends at Adobe to do my camera to cloud session. So I use camera to cloud for everything. I was at CES. And a lot of my Adobe friends couldn't go. So I'm like, let me just be the nerd on call, and I will just take video of all the cool things. And I made a Frame.io camera to cloud CES sort of cool things folder. And then you can see that, all of my colleagues are commenting on this footage, right?
Right.
So
now, by the way, were you shooting this inside of Filmic Pro, or were you using
Filmic Pro? Great question. And I just shot video all day.
Right. So. And just so that everyone's clear again, Filmic Pro on the iPhone. So right? Yeah. So just to be really clear here, this is camera to cloud. Dave is watching the Blue Angels in the open space with his iPhone shooting 10-bit ProRes.
So we're inviting you to come to Annapolis, God's gift, Chesapeake Bay. So this is kind of cool because there's some great video here, but I also like to say it's great for, let's say that we're shooting a movie here. I'm going to go just use the Filmic Pro camera to cloud with LucidLink just to do a visual walkthrough. Show me where we'd set up the cameras. What does this look like? Is this a good site? Are we going to be able to get legal requirements solved for this site, right? Like camera to cloud just solves so many workflow problems, and then moving this over to LucidLink, when you decide to download that whole folder, move it to LucidLink. And then it's just a file path as far as Frame's concerned. It really doesn't matter where this happens. So it's just super, super simple and works really well.
Awesome. Now, someone was just asking, I'm looking here over on YouTube, now, and I imagine this actually doesn't change because you're using different things for this. But so in terms of let's say the footage is living on Lucid, but of course you're doing your review and commenting, that theoretically is still coming from the frame side. You're running it in the
100%
browser
correct.
anyway. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So that doesn't change. It works the same way regardless.
So just remember for now, right? Cloud tech is moving quick, right? Like we want to combine a lot of these things, but it's like, you know, today you gotta go for the storage, certainly in the cloud, like LucidLink, where I can just get that instant response. If I can't come over here, click on the space bar and have something happen, then my creativity just starts to drain from my brain.
Right.
And then I get to a point where I want to punch the screen. You know, so to me, this just allows me to keep up with as fast as I'm thinking, as I mentioned before. And in a frame environment, remember, the only way to get that to work the way you need it to is to download everything local. All 4 users on this particular project versus one person downloading it.
Right.
And in this case, I've got 23 people sharing in this particular environment. So it really saves time. And normally, Jace, someone's going to be an assistant on a bigger edit. They're going to be organizing bins and media and folder and say, okay, let's get this thing ready to go. Or by the way, it may be you if you're wearing multiple hats and you're just trying to say, okay, today I'm just going to organize media. And then you throw it up all on LucidLink before you start inviting people to a team project. You just get everything nice and organized. And that's pretty much the way it happens, whether you're shooting, you know, corporate video, a wedding video, or a movie.
And Dave,
I love that.
Just as a reminder, Jason and I showed this as well, is you can start on just a non-team project, just a standard, you know, PR proj, and organize your media if you are that assistant editor, or if you're wearing that hat that day, and convert it to a team project. You know, have your stuff on Lucid sort of any time in the process. You don't have to begin there. You have the option of moving to that workflow really whenever you're ready for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the workflow, Abhi, I mean, they can really stay in that team projects zone, right? Like I said, because I can't say it enough. If I can just remove the mystery of how this works, the biggest compliment people have told, you know, certainly me and certainly the LucidLink team, is they forget what LucidLink even is. Like they just forget the tech. And it's just like, I don't know how I can work any other way. You know, I think, you know, as these solutions start to develop, we're going to make sure that we get things to be as tight as we can get it. And anytime we can remove a step from having to, you know, link things up or like what you're seeing on frame, we're going to be looking at that super, super close. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, gentlemen, we've got about 10 more minutes. I just wanted to, our colleague Gino Alberto has kindly sort of reiterated some of the cues for those who are not in the chat but are watching. A couple things, just Dave, you could just kind of re-emphasize here. So one in particular, and this was asked just a moment ago, but what's the minimum operating system you need to run LucidLink on both Windows or Mac?
You know, it supports, I think it's 10, 12 and up.
Yep, Mac OS Sierra 1012. Yep, and Windows 7 it appears, right?
Gargana can certainly chime in on the chat if I've misspoke. And then Windows 10 and up. I'm not sure the Linux version. Now, on the Adobe side, you know, we always recommend you know, as modern of an operating system as your system will run, just to take advantage of all the things we're doing. One of the new features that we're just trying to make easier is when you get into it, you'll see a new GPU initialization optimization pop up that will just try to examine your hardware and make it play back as best as it can. So stay as recent as your hardware will allow you.
Love that. And then this one came up a few times. Again, for anyone kind of joining us now, we talked about the fact that you're using this footage with Lucid is coming via AWS, but does it also work with Azure, Google, and other cloud storage providers?
Great question. So let me, Abhi, I'm going to disconnect from this workspace.
Yep, go for it.
Obviously, that's going to go offline, and let me just close all projects here because that is a wonderful question. I'm going to fire up Lucid over here again. I have these Lucid mounts all over the planet. I have them in India. I have them everywhere. So if I wanted to, you know, come in and connect to Adobe India. I think Adobe India may be set up on IBM space. So if I come over here, here's Adobe India. Let me just double check that. Ooh, that's
Sure.
AWS too. Sorry. The I do have one other one.
Yeah.
Here you
By
go.
the way, just to insert there, Gorgana just did confirm it is Windows 7 and up and
Oh, it
Mac
is
OS
7.
Sierra
Okay, thank you.
1012. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here is Adobe's own Azure website. So this is our this is me running on corporate. Jason, it only took me 4 months to get Adobe IT.
Right.
And now they're like, wow, this is really good stuff.
Yeah,
So
right.
I can
You
come
work
in
here? Wait,
and,
what?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I can just come in and just launch, and it works great with bring your own storage, and I can get in here if I have to, and point the work here. So it works pretty fantastic. So
Nice. Okay, we've got one from Ricardo Silva, who's asking, now working as a team sharing the project, at which point does will the autosave work 100% safe without having to go to the save command and doing Control S?
Yeah, I can take that.
so that's just a generic. Yeah, I know they've been working a lot on autosaves, Jason. So yeah, you might.
Yep, and Abhi talked a lot about this last week, but Abhi,
Yeah.
please let's reiterate what we've
Yeah,
done
so
there.
with team projects, every change that you're making is auto-saved, right? So you can always go back. You can go into your media browser and go back to the project that you're working on and be able to, look through your history and be able to go back to any autosave or any version that you might be working on, right? In this case, we are in this project here, and we can go back to any point and be able to revert back to that project or take in anything from the autosave. We also have a version history as well. So, with team projects, I think people can have a lot of confidence that that's being saved every time. People are actually surprised because they do Command S, Control S, and they're like, I want to see some sort of thing, but it's literally happening because it's a database with every change that you're making.
Right. And is that the frequency? It's every essentially change, keyframe adjustment. Is it time based or is it function based? I guess is the question here.
It's function based. So any sort of edit you make will save it and let you go back to it. And that's something we are also looking at making improvements on the Premiere side to have similar capabilities as well, just for the standalone projects.
We can expand on that a little bit without saying too much, but we do recognize, because Abhi and I talk about this a lot as with the rest of the engineering team, we do recognize the fact that local files and cloud files and the way that these things work, having sort of one sort of unified way of working is definitely the future, and looking at more database type structures. So stay tuned for more conversations around that. But we are continuing to update the product to be more modern. Jason, I did want to mention one thing, and we didn't cover this, but if you bring up my screen, if it's not up already, I'm gonna just go to export here. I just pick the Adobe volume, and I'm going to export directly to the Jason Friday folder, and I just say save and go. That's now going to export pretty quick, and it's writing it to the cloud at the same time. So
nice.
There's no need to export local and then drag that to LucidLink. Remember,
and then
LucidLink
upload.
is just a file path, so just render on LucidLink. I don't recommend sending cache files to LucidLink, just like I wouldn't recommend sending cache files to the internet. But now, you would have complete access to that. And that is a great way to use the technology, especially when you're in a time crunch.
Yeah, actually, Dave, that brings up, someone was asking that question a bit earlier and it got lost.
Okay, great.
That's a great question regarding caches, preview files, and you just said it there. These are elements of your project that you don't want stored in the cloud. You want to keep those things local for a reason.
You don't even want to store them on a local server. I mean, if you have a 10 gig E server and you've got it fine-tuned with SSD cache and all that stuff, that's a different scenario.
That's a different thing, yeah.
Yeah, but for the average person, keep all your cache local. You know,
And
in
and
there,
and actually, Dave, as a sub question to that, and this is something which your nerdy brain can
yeah,
speak to. I still get a lot of questions because that's one of those things, in particular caches. Because now I'll say, we make it pretty easy in Premiere and After Effects, shared caches there to clear them, to free them up, to increase the space. Is there a reason or a need to change those default locations? We know
not
this gets asked a lot, particularly for people who archive
yeah.
projects and things. There's a lot of concern around that.
So you may laugh because we go back to CS5. Remember, I used
Yes.
to have the Helmley CS5, basically nuke cache
Yes. Yes.
script. So my prayers were answered. So if I quit Premiere, this is brand new in the current version,
Yeah.
and I
So this is
launch
23.1.
Premiere, you now get this wonderful screen. And I don't know if you can zoom in, Jace. I'll leave it right there, where
Okay.
I can just wipe everything out, including I'm having weird issues, disable my plugins, and let me go in and just test this with no plugins to see if that's my problem. But this clear
Right.
media cache, that's the answer that everybody's been looking for.
Yep.
So you get to this in one screen to help that mystery just go away, and of course that will reset it back to default. You can leave it at default. You can certainly change the cache location if you're worried about that. You just have to make sure it's a super fast drive, like an NVMe drive. You know, if you haven't seen those, just on the nerdy side, this is what hard drives look like these days. They're these little tiny NVMe. It's not a USB drive. It's not a spinning drive. It's got to be super fast, like memory. So
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Let's see here. So, again, this is sort of a common one, but I just want to reiterate this as we're coming to a close. So, what happens when two people are using the same media files? And this is something Abhi covered a lot last week with regard to the team projects. But the bottom line is these aren't issues anymore because of all the great indicators that we have in the app to allow people different rights and permissions while sharing the same content, the same project, the same media.
Yeah, exactly. I think, one of the things that we work on is just making sure that handoff when people are working together in the same project on the same media file is a lot more smooth. So previously, we had sort of conflicts that would take place because people would be looking at the same click in the same sequence at the same time, or working in the same sequence at the same time. And now with sequence locking available, it makes it a lot more sort of rational in terms of how work is handed off. So like we saw, when Dave was in a sequence here, I kind of actually work on anything he's working on. And similarly, when I'm working on a sequence, it shows that I'm editing it. And the way that's showing up on Dave's machine is it's locked. All his editing controls are grayed out. He can copy the media, but he can't actually change it till I click on the publish button and release that lock. So that's made it a lot easier for multiple people to be working on the same media at the same time.
and I'll add to that, Abhi, because we've worked with so many customers. Team projects isn't new,
Yeah.
but in order to give it this new feel, this new look, it's all customer driven at this point for the interviews that you and the engineering team have gone out to do with a lot of my customers for sure, and just walking through some of the pain points. It'd be better if, and they had decided that project locking was going to be a huge benefit rather than trying to get over what I call marriage counseling, where you're having to do conflict resolution screens and all of that stuff. It's just like, maybe it's just
That's a
better.
new one, Dave. I hadn't heard that. Marriage
I
counseling,
gotta keep
conflict
it.
resolution. I like it.
Yeah, I got to
Yeah,
keep it
it's a good
fresh.
one.
So.
Steal that one. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
And the other thing
Oh
I
my
would add,
gosh.
Jason, is I think we mentioned this last time, is we also have improvements coming on the offline side, which is if you're working offline, you're on a plane, you come back. Previously, you'd have to pick if somebody had worked on the same sequence while you were on that plane. Now I'll create a duplicate sequence for you and preserve that work,
Right.
so that data is never lost and your changes are always preserved. So.
Love that. All right, last question here, and this one we get this asked occasionally, and I don't know. You have 1 minute, Dave. 1 minute. I'm timing you here.
So think of
Here's the question.
Yeah.
When would a team choose team projects or productions? 45-second answer.
45-second answer. Well, you can see my screen here. I've got open production. I will go browse to a folder, typically on LucidLink. I would just go down to my productions folder here. And what happens when I point this at a particular production, think of it as a master file. I have one file with about, in this particular case, about 30 different projects underneath it. This is like, again, a master file, and each one of these are smaller files. So I can get in here, and I'll just offline these for now so I don't link them. But there are so many different pieces to this project where I need to be able to keep everything organized under one project. So there's no media duplication. There's no, I guess, graphic issues that we normally run into with different folders. And it works phenomenal with LucidLink. And I kind of look at it like almost like Team Projects Pro, when you just have a ton going on. But to be honest with you, Team Projects is doing a ton right now. And most people, unless you're working on a huge documentary or a full season, and 800,000 clips, I'd stick with Team Projects.
And we're going to leave it there, my friends. So Dave, stick around for a moment. And Abhi, thank you so much again. So great to have you on the show. We've got more coming up today on Adobe Live. So for everyone, have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, gentlemen. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.